I met the vice president of Pepsi once, vice chairman of Pepsi, and we became friends. He's a doctor, and he had some interesting conversations. And I said, why do you guys use high fructose corn syrup? He says, the government makes it too cheap for us not to use it.
Wait, let's talk about corn a little bit, because the high fructose corn syrup one always strikes me as the craziest thing, that if you buy a Coca Cola in the United States,
yes.
I believe it's the second ingredient, it's water, and then it's high fructose corn syrup.
Yes.
If you buy a Mexican Coke, meaning a
sugar.
Coke in Mexico, or that one that's been brought here, the second ingredient is sugar.
Yeah.
How did we in America, we're so advanced, and yet we can't even do the sugar thing,
well,
right?
I met
even though sugar ain't that great for you?
I met the vice president of Pepsi once, vice chairman of Pepsi, and we became friends. He's a doctor, and he had some interesting conversations. And I said, why do you guys use high fructose corn syrup? He says, the government makes it too cheap for us not to use it. There's all kinds of tariffs on sugar to prevent importing sugar, to keep the prices higher, and to actually help corn farmers use their products for the sugar, which helps Americans, but it also kills Americans.
Yeah, jeez. Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a screwy one. I mean, it's just nuts.
It is screwy, yeah.
Yeah, you go to a store and you got to pay more for the sugar one. Than
because the
corn
prices are artificially low, right?
Yeah.
So it's challenging, and I think we kind of have to look at how do we create things that aren't overly onerous for people, but that incentivize them to do the right thing and disincentivize them to the wrong thing, right? I think that's what we do through our tax code. We can incentivize through our tax code. Why do we, for example, allow the food industry to take a $15 billion tax cut or not pay taxes on marketing junk food? Mm-hmm. Why do we do that? I mean, cigarettes, there's enormous taxes, there's enormous disincentives, you can't advertise. Why do we let them do that? I mean, we can say free speech, fine, but why should we let them have the benefit of that?
Right. So what model is better for us? So I see what you're saying. So okay, we're exporting a lot of this, but where are the places that have a model that maybe makes a little more sense?
Well, I mean, listen, Europe is so far ahead of us. There's no GMO. Half the ingredients in our food that we allow, they don't allow. Food additives, colors, dyes, something like azodicarbonamide, which is a yoga mat material that is used in...
Oh, isn't that in the McRib? Is that the one that's in the McRib?
It was in Subway.
Yeah.
It was in Subway buns. It was in a lot of the fast food buns.
Yeah.
And it's still allowed in this country. It's
as a yoga teacher and a food guy, this must kill you.
That's right. And in Singapore, for example, which is a very restrictive country, if you use that as a food manufacturer in your product, you get a $450,000 fine and 15 years in jail, and we allow it here.
Right.
Products like BHT and are preservatives that are not allowed in Europe. There's a whole list of these in my book of why do we have them here and not there, and so we have to look at how different countries are addressing this, and Europe as collectively is focusing on regenerative agriculture, on changing their system. Chile is a great example of a country that has implemented a whole series of food policies that have had great impact in reducing obesity and ill health, which are completely unpalatable in this country. So the only way it got done was the vice president of the Senate and the president of the country at the same time were doctors. And they got this. And they're like, we're going to fight the food industry. So they put in a ban on junk food advertising to kids from 6 in the morning to 11 at night. They banned all cartoon characters on kids' food. So no more Tony the Tiger. They killed Toucan Sam and Tony the Tiger.
Slaughter.
Yeah, they put warning labels on the front of packaging, like cigarettes for bad food. They eliminated advertising of formula to kids. They eliminated any junk food in schools. And they put an 18% soda tax. And they've funded, there's been funding to assess the impact of this, $30 million from Bloomberg actually to fund what this actually is doing. And they found dramatic improvements, and the most dramatic benefit wasn't even from the soda tax. It was from the ban on marketing and the warning labels. Reduced consumption 4 times more than soda taxes.
Is the increasing of taxes on these things, is that just really a short-term stop, though? Because eventually, if you get enough people to stop, then you don't have the tax money anymore, and then you might be funding other things with the tax money?
I don't know. I mean, it's been a model that is very controversial, but Larry Summers and Michael Bloomberg created a fiscal task force around the world of finance ministers to look at how do we use financial policies to change behavior, right? So you tax the things you don't want people to do, and you incentivize the things you want people to do, right? So savings you don't tax, and maybe soda you should tax, right? And I think that it's been effective across the world. It's just a challenging thing to do. The data is really clear that it works. Yeah. Cigarettes, we do it on cigarettes. We've done it in Berkeley, we've done it in Philadelphia, we've done it in many, many cities. But the problem is the food industry fights back. So in the last election, 2016, 4 cities in California passed a soda tax. There are 6 cities totally in the country. And the food industry freaked out. So the big soda companies then created a strategy to prohibit future taxes. So what they did is, for example, they went in California and they created a ballot measure that would prohibit local taxes unless there was a 2/3 majority, which would mean it would cripple local governments to fund schools, to fund police departments, fire departments. And they didn't care about that, but they spent $7 million funding this campaign that would have passed because people don't like taxes, right? 5 days before the election, they went to Governor Brown, who was also called Governor Moonbeam, probably the most liberal governor in history. Yep. They said, if you don't pass this preemptive law that prohibits future taxes on soda and junk food, we're going to leave this ballot measure in, and you're going to be screwed. So he basically was bullied. They made him a quote an offer he couldn't refuse, like the mafia, and he had to pass this tax, which now prohibits future taxes. And they're doing this in state after state after sstate. So all this happens behind the scenes.
Yeah. Politics is messy.
Yeah. And so as consumers, we're sort of like stuck with this system that is perpetuating a disease-creating system and a disease-creating economy, and it's threatening our entire way of life. And people just don't get it. It's like if we don't fix this, we're all going to be really sick and fat and get all these chronic illnesses, which we already are. Our economy is going to be crippled by this. I mean, think about it. If $1 and $2 of our entire federal budget is for Medicare, I mean, like there's no money for anything else, right?
Yeah. All right. So we have sick people suddenly from all of this, or I guess not so suddenly. It's happened over generations. We've got an economy that the incentives are completely out of whack. Let's talk about that planet thing too. How is this affecting the planet? We talked a little bit about
so here we talked about some of the environmental impacts, but what people don't realize is that the very way we grow food is threatening our ability to grow food because of its impact on our climate and weather, right? So if you look at end to end our entire food system, it's 50% of climate change, where fossil fuels is about 1/3. So it's worse than fossil fuels. Why? Deforestation. We kill 7 billion trees a year, the size of Costa Rica. Soil erosion from our way of farming and the tilling. Factory farming of animals, food waste, transport, refrigeration, all these things end to end, you add them up and it's 50%. The good news is that if that's true, we can fix it. And the UN said that if we took 2 million of the 5 million degraded hectares of land around the world from overgrazing and from poor farm techniques, and we convert it to regenerative agriculture, which is a way of farming that restores and builds soil, that conserves water, that increases biodiversity, pollinators, et cetera, produces better food that's more profitable for the farmers. If we did that, we could stop climate change for 20 years, and it would cost $300 billion, which is less than Medicare spends on diabetes every year in America.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about lifestyles instead of nonstop yelling, check out our lifestyle playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.